Hey everybody, hope you're having a good holiday season. This year I went over to New York City and got some pretty good shots with my Canon R6. And on this trip I used the new 70-200 f4 lens that I've talked about in my last couple of videos. Still on it, still using it for street photography, and I want to talk about some of the shots that I got, and I'll actually do a couple edits for you guys in this video. So on my trip I went to Bryant Park, which is kind of near Grand Central Station. Then I took a subway down to Chinatown, walked over to the Oculus, which is a mall near the World Trade Center Memorial, and then I headed back to Grand Central. So yeah, that was pretty much the trip, and I'll go through a couple photos, probably a photo from each spot, and hope you guys enjoy. Really quick, I just want to mention that only 2% of you guys that watch my videos are subscribed. So if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Really helps out the channel, and I'll put it back into it by getting some new gear down the line. With that, let's go ahead and jump on over, do some edits. Okay, so we're over in Lightroom now. Just gonna take a look at a few of the photos that I liked the most, I think, from this trip. There happens to be just like one from each area of the city that I went to, which again was Bryant Park, Chinatown, and the Oculus, and everything in between. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and go through them. I'll talk about the shots. I took these all with the 70-200 f4. It's just what I had on. I didn't feel like switching any lenses, so I just rolled with it and tried to see what I could get. So here's this first shot. It's near Bryant Park. I just took a shot down one of the streets. You know, like these buildings, there's a lot of cool colors going on. So yeah, I kind of like that about the 70-200. You can just shoot down a street and kind of like, I don't know, it frames really well. I really like shooting like lengthways down a street. It's pretty nice. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and jump in and get some editing done, and just do a quick edit, see if we can do a walkthrough of the process that I use. Let's go ahead and start with my usual routine of desaturating, which is just putting all these sliders to the left, and then I really like to do the present sliders first. In this one I'm going to increase dehaze a little bit because it was a little bit hazy out there. Then we're going to bump clarity just a touch and then bring texture down to counteract that. Next, we're going to move on to the tone curve. We're going to put our 3 points in on the bottom third, and then these two up here. There's not a whole lot of parts of the curve up here, so the light part isn't that important. We're actually going to leave the whites pretty high and bring this down a little bit here, but we want the peaks pretty high in white. And then we can lift the blacks up a little bit at the bottom and bring these ones down just a tad. And that really creates a lot of nice contrast here in the image, and I'm pretty happy with that. I think we'll keep it right there. Now we're going to come back up to the tone section with the blacks and stuff. We can lift the blacks just a little bit. We can make the whites a bit whiter. I do like that because the sky, there's really nothing going on in the sky, so you might as well have it pure white to contrast the blacks in the rest. So that's why I'm doing that. We can lift the shadows a little bit, and then the highlights we can pretty much leave where they are. I think if you drop them, the sky looks a little fake, and if you increase them, it gets a little bit blown out. So I think right where it's at is a good level. All right, now let's bring some colors back in. We will start just going one by one and bring in whatever looks good. And I really like this red here, and to be honest, you could almost leave the edit at this if you wanted, but let's check out the other colors. Orange is kind of cool because that building is like the centerpiece of this photo, and it is an orange building, so you might as well bring some in. Yellows, okay, so you bring in a little bit of yellow on in the bottom left corner, and then there's some in the like bus windshield, there's some down the road. Yellows is okay. I think we can do it. We can bring it in a little bit. Green, there's nothing really going on, so I'll just leave it down at 0. Aqua, there's only a tiny bit in that building on the right, but I'm going to leave it down at 0 as well. Blues, there's a whole lot, and it's kind of our choice now whether to bring blues in or just leave it kind of like a red-orange tone image. I think we can do just a little bit of blues. We are going to color grade the shadows toward the blues as well, so we don't want to overdo the blues in the end. Okay, there's purple as well. Let's experiment. Let's leave purple in, but no blue. I think that's a little bit better. I like the purples a little bit better than the blues, and then we won't overdo it with the color grade either. Magenta has a little bit of an effect, but we'll just leave it down. All right, onto color grading. As I mentioned, we're gonna bring blues into our shadows. It is a cooler image. We'll mess with the temperature a little bit later on. Midtones, we can either go blue or orange, depending on what temperature we want to start off with. I think we can go... I kind of like it colder like this. It is a winter photo after all. We don't want to go blue across. Well, we could. I don't know. I'm gonna bring orange into the highlights a little bit. Okay, now that we've done that, let's go back up to temperature and mess around with that a little bit. So if we drop the temperature down or up, we're just gonna slide it until we like it. We're gonna slide it till we like it. I think I like the original. I think I already set it up how I want it without adjusting that. Oh shoot, we never leveled it out. Let's see, if we hit the vertical transform, I think that's pretty good. I'm good with that. Now let's add some vignetting a little bit here. Slide it to the left so we can access the midpoint. And we're going to drop it just a little bit like that. Let's go to the extremes and then slide it back. That's good. Okay, calibration I think is going to be all right how it is. We could make it a nice black and orange, but I kind of like the original red tones. You might be able to drop them just a bit. Greens are fine. Blues we're going to leave as is as well. And I think that's looking all right for me, for my taste. Maybe we can crop a little bit. That's a little bit much sky. I can't really tell what's going on, or like why I'm not really satisfied. Maybe that's better with like an Instagram size crop, the 4x5. I kind of like that a little bit better. And this building, this red building, is kind of now our centerpiece a little bit more so. Let's add a little mask over here to kind of just get rid of these distractions, or like lessen their impact just a bit by darkening. And then we're going to do the same on the other side here, just to really focus our attention on this red building, kind of make it look like we're coming out of the shadows into the light where that building is. And I think that's going to be kind of neat. Yeah, so I'm kind of liking that. All the focus is on this color. One last mask. We're going to darken this street at the bottom here. I kind of like this. All right, so here, I'm just going to stop it there so we can move on to the other photos. But let's take a look at the before and after. Before and after. I'm really satisfied with that, and I'm good. Let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so in Chinatown, I saw this monk-looking fellow. So we are going to start off with a crop a little bit. There's a lot of dead space in this image, and I'm really going to try to just focus in on our guy here. We are going to, well, I should have, we'll first just desaturate it. There we go, which again is moving all these sliders to the left and nothing else. Let's go ahead and go on with our present slider. We're going to do the same kind of situation. We're going to bump dehaze, bump clarity, drop texture just a bit. Now we're going to move on to our tone curve. Whoops, we don't want to do that. Onto our tone curve, put our 3 points. We can spread them out a little bit. And then we are going to put our 2 points in the last half. We're going to bring down the whites a bit, bring up the blacks a bit, bring down this 3rd point and the 4th point. And I'm liking that S curve right there. Now let's come back up to our blacks. We're gonna keep them pretty down because I like the contrast that's coming out in this. We're gonna increase our whites a bit. Leave the shadows as is as well. We don't need to drop them, but we don't need to lift them either. So we can have a pretty contrasty image to start off with. Let's drop exposure just a bit. It's a little bit too much on the whites. Yeah, about -0.5 or so. Now let's bring in some saturation. So we definitely are going to need a little bit of red here. Orange is the highlight of the image, of course, because we have our robe here, or I don't know the terminology, but I'm gonna go with robe. Yellow we can bring in a bit for now, just to bring in some skin tone, but it introduces some kind of crappy yellows up here, but we can fix that later. Greens has no effect really. Aquas has no effect really. Blue has a lot of effect, but I don't really want any of that. I kind of like just the black, white, and orange look. Purple just has a little bit. Well, let's keep it out. It's too distracting. And magenta, the same. Okay, so now let's go ahead. I think the next thing we're going to do before color grading is add the vignette. Actually, we're going to hit the vertical button. It doesn't really do much, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's add the vignetting in, darkening vignette. Really focus the lighting around our subject here. Now let's come on back up to the color grading. I think we're going to go a little more orange in the shadows this time, as well as the midtones, but barely any saturation. I don't want like a totally orange photo. It's going to look kind of crappy. Let's go up to temperature and mess around and see what we like. I'm pretty sure just right where it was. Maybe warm and increase the temperature just a little bit would be fine. Let's slide this contrast slider a little bit. No, we don't want to mess with that too much. I don't like messing the contrast slider. It's too powerful. I'd rather fine tune the contrast using the black, white, and tone curve sliders. We're gonna bring this crop in just a little bit. There's a little bit too much dead space, I'd say. Yeah, let's slide it over. Cool. All right, so that's looking decent. Now let's add some masking in, especially in the foreground. Let's really get that darker, really bring our focus onto our subject here. Let's go ahead and mask up here. Circle this whole area, and let's bring the saturation down just a touch, so that way our subject is really the only point of color that's going on that our eye is focusing on. Let's bring over to our luminance. We can increase the luminance a bit of the oranges just to make our guy pop out a bit. Just gonna play around, turn him red or yellow. That's not great. Yeah, the original orange of course is the best. Let's go ahead up to masking. Okay, so we're going to do a radial gradient around our subject here. And then we are going to subtract from our gradient, select subject, and that way it kind of just has a mask of the halo around this guy. And we're going to add, but via brush, because it didn't exactly find him completely, we're going to add via brush right around his noggin, right there. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And then to make him pop out, we are going to slide the dehaze a bit to the right, and that way he's really popping, which is kind of nice because he's framed by this guy in the black coat, so it really makes his head pop off and his like upper body here. And then if we increase dehaze, we'll go to the extremes a bit, it really makes him pop out a bit more because his background gets a bit darker while he stays kind of light. Let's do that one more time. Actually, no, I think that's pretty solid. I was gonna increase the dehaze around his lower body as well, but I think he's popping out pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, yeah, so this was with the 70-200 from like a block away. It was kind of nice. This is at 176 mil, 320 ISO and f4. So I'm pretty happy with this. Of course, you know, if you wanted the f2.8 to really blur out the background a bit more, you could have done that, but pretty happy with how that turned out. All right, so let's move on to the shot of this guy here. This was taken at the Oculus Mall, which is a really neat looking thing. Here, I'll show a photo, you know, off of Google Images, but yeah, this is a really cool thing. And there was this guy kind of standing out in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of interesting because it was so darn crowded that I could actually get this guy. So let's go ahead and start with a little rotate, just a little bit. I'm looking at the horizontal lines. Trying to balance it out, trying to make the floor look even, because it looks like he's almost on a slanted floor. Just because of the lines, it's kind of an illusion. Anyway, let's, yeah, go ahead. Let's desat. Come down to dehaze. We're going to crank it. Clarity. Texture. You know the usual. You know the drill. All right, moving on to tone curve. Put our points, really focus some of the points where most of the curve is. And then the rest is going to be just fine. Bump the blacks a little bit. Bring our third and fourth points down just a tad. Yeah, and I think that's going to be all right. I think our clarity might be a little too much in the windows. It's not looking great. So we got to readjust that. All right, so let's come back up to blacks. We're going to bring the blacks down a bit. Our subject is getting a little dark, but we're going to brighten him later with a mask. We're going to crank the whites up pretty high. Shadows as well, and highlights. Highlights as well. Highlights can stay right about where they are. And that's looking all right. Let's go ahead and give it a crop. There's a little bit too much dead floor space in front of our subject. There we go, and that's looking pretty decent. Now let's move on to the colors. Let's introduce one by one. Okay, red is important for the skin tone. Orange also important for the skin tone. Unfortunately, I want a very orange jacket, but it makes the guy's head look very, overly orange. So for now, we're going to increase it a lot, and then we're going to bring the saturation in his skin down later on. Yellows, we don't really need. Aqua, we don't need. Blue is in the lighting. Okay, so it's up to you if you want to introduce the blue or not. I'm going to leave it out. I really like this black, white, and orange. Same with purple, it has the same effect. That's fine. So we're just going to have orange here with a pretty neat, just black and white background. And I think that's going to look just fine. Okay, let's move on to the color grade a little bit here. A little bit of blue in the shadows, our usual. This is turning out to be a very similar edit across the board for all the photos I'm showing you guys, but I don't know, I guess that's just the style I've developed, so be it. Nope. Okay, so none of those are going to work out for us. Let's go ahead and readjust our rotation here. All right, let's go down to vignetting. Okay, so I think vignetting is going to be pretty nice here. So we're going to add quite a bit. I kind of like this. And then our guy is kind of getting darkened out, but we're going to fix that. Okay, so the background is kind of how I want it. Man, I'm just not happy with these rotations. I don't know how to do it. So I guess I'm just make the guy as vertical as possible, and then the floor is just going to have to be how it is. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Okay, so now let's go on to masking. So let's go ahead and detect subject here. We're going to use the people select mask, and we're just going to select all the skin scenarios. Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're just going to select all the skin situations, all the facial stuff. Hair is fine. It's got dark hair, so it doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and create mask, and now wait, why does it select his shoes? Wow, it thinks the shoes are skin. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so we're going to drop saturation just a bit so the skin tone looks natural. And I think that's pretty good right there. All right, now let's, we're going to have to adjust this to make either the jacket pop a bit, or we're going to change it so the jacket pops, but then if we increase the saturation for the jacket, we have to go back and decrease it for the skin tone again. So we just got to keep finely tuning, and that's fine. Alternatively, we can mask just the jacket, but this is just kind of an alternative workaround. All right, let's mess with the luminance a bit. I think we're going to increase the luminance just like that. Now let's go ahead and create another new mask. We're going to go ahead and hit select subject, and then we're going to increase the exposure of our subject just a little bit, because He's getting a little bit darkened by our vignette. So yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Now let's again keep trial and error, or iterating through and just darkening what we want. I'm going to really crank up the vignette here, just because I don't know, frankly I think it looks good, even though I don't recommend huge vignetting all the time. I think in this particular scenario it's all right, just because of the background and stuff. You can't really tell if it's vignette or if it's just the lighting is funny, and all these lines, it kind of looks good. So yeah, I think that's going to be our finalized edit right there. I'm really happy with this photo. I think this is my favorite photo of the trip. I wish I could find this guy and give him the edit. Oh, I found one thing that I don't like. Let's go ahead and brush out whatever that line, that reflection of light is here, and this red reflection here, and desaturate that. Now I like it. All right, so yeah, there we go. Yeah, always find a little fine tuning that you can do. So yeah, that's gonna be the finalized edit for this one. And now let's move on to our final photo from the trip, which is just on the subway on the way back to Grand Central Station. Let's go ahead and do an edit. Actually, let's go ahead and copy the edit from this one by right-clicking the photo in the bottom here, going to develop settings, copy settings. Let's copy them all. Let's move on over to here, develop settings, paste settings. All right, so that looks like crap. First of all, I don't want to copy the crop necessarily. Saturations, let's mess with the saturations once again. Bring yellows down. This turned out to be a terrible idea. Let's bring our temperature way down. Wow, how did this happen? It's very interesting. Oh, do I have calibrations? No, I don't have calibrations. That's wild stuff, guys. Blue in the shadows for this one. Why are my pillars not turning blue? Suspicious. Maybe they are, they're just too dark. That's a little better. Okay, so we just brightened it up a bit, and then yeah, there we go. That's better. Okay, so we dropped the temperature because it's just more appropriate for this edit. We do want blues in this edit, so we're going to really bring out the blues, focus on those. Let's make sure we're not missing out on any other good colors, but I think the blue and orange contrast between the posts and the, I guess, yellow line, orange line, whatever. We're going to drop all the yellows out for this image. Red can come in for the guy's hat, because that looks kind of cool. And I like the tone curve where it is. I like most of the other lighting how it is. So that's just going to be a quick edit. Just using the same settings that we did for the monk photo. So, oh, I forgot. I don't think we did any before and afters for a few of these. So let's go back to the monk one. Show the before and the after. Before and after. Onto this one. Here's the before and here's the after. And for the final photo, here's the before and here's the after. We can do a quick I don't know, like halo effect thing for this guy with the same process that we did for the monk. We're going to just draw a radial around him. We're going to subtract, select subject, and then dehaze. We're going to bring the dehaze, I think, up this time. Yeah, quite a bit up because our guy is darker. Yeah, all right, so I think that'll be it. Yeah, so these are my shots, my favorite shots from the New York City trip. Let me know what you guys thought of it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. What did you think about these shots? Did you have a good holiday? Did you get any cool camera-related gifts? I want to know about it. So with that, we'll catch you guys later. We'll see you in the next one.